My brother ruined my interview and called it a prank. By Friday, my brother wrecked my job interview and treated it like a harmless gag. By Friday, his salary was redirected, and I finally allowed him to deal with the fallout. My name is Ethan. I'm 34. For most of my grown-up years, I've been the one my family dials when everything falls apart. Not because I'm a genius or loaded or plugged into powerful circles. I'm steady. That's the word they use. Ethan is solid. The guy who shows up when rent's due. When the car dies or someone needs a co-signature on a loan they can't qualify for a loan. I live in a compact apartment 22 minutes from the house I grew up in. The walls are paper-thin, the kitchen is outdated. The radiator clanks like an old man clearing his throat in winter. But it's mine. I cover the rent myself, always have. My work is reliable but demanding. I handle tech support for a small logistics company. The shifts are long, the problems are complex, and the pay is decent. Enough to keep my own lights on and still wire cash when another crisis call comes in. Dylan, my brother, is 30, 4 years behind me, yet he's always been cradled like something fragile and priceless. As kids, I got dog-eared textbooks. Dylan got brand new ones, a laptop, and cash for trips I was never asked to join. At 16, I inherited a dented sedan with a cracked windshield and was told to be grateful. At 16, Dylan got my parents to co-sign for a sleek silver Charger. They said he deserved something sharp, something that fit his promise. Promise, Dylan couldn't escape that label. He had promise in high school, even though he barely graduated. He had promise in community college, then dropped out after one term. He had promise hopping between sales, gigs, rental deals, and half-finished business schemes that bled our parents dry and produced nothing but alibis. Whenever Dylan stumbled, when a landlord called, when a bill collector mailed a notice, my phone lit up. Because I was solid, Mom never checked if I minded, she just assumed. That's what family does, she'd say, we don't keep score, but I did. Not out of bitterness, but necessity. I kept a file on my laptop, a plain spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and reasons. Dylan needed $2,500 for a deposit after an eviction, $1,000 for Mom's car repair after she lent Dylan her sedan and he fried the transmission, $1,800 when Dad's insurance fell short on medical bills. I never showed the file. I never demanded repayment. I just kept adding lines. 2 years ago, Dylan wanted another car loan. His credit was trashed. Late payments, collections, write-offs. No lender would touch him. He showed up grinning, promising the moon. Just cosign, he said. I'll handle every dime, you'll never notice. I hesitated. I knew better. But Mom rang that night. She said Dylan was finally trying. She said he had a solid job lined up. She said it would mean the world if I helped. So I signed. The first check arrived late. The second bounced. By month 3, I was covering half the note to keep the loan from tanking both our scores. Dylan never mentioned it. He just kept cruising, posting sunset drives, living like the ground beneath him was padded. It was padded by me. I told myself that's what families do. Dylan barged into my apartment on a Sunday afternoon, no heads up. He treated my place like an annex of his own, striding in with a favor already forming. I was at my desk, reviewing notes for a Monday interview. A big one. Senior network architect, 6 figures, a company triple the size of my current shop. I'd been grinding prep for 14 days. Dylan flopped on my couch, tossed his phone on the table, grinning like he always did when he wanted something. He launched into an investment pitch. A buddy was flipping houses. Dylan needed $25,000. He said it breezily like borrowing a jacket. I stopped typing, swiveled, asked if he was serious. He laughed, dead serious. This would flip his life, triple the money in 8 months, easy. All he needed was a cosigner for a personal loan. Banks wouldn't bite. He needed clean credit, someone responsible. I reminded him about the car, how I'd been propping up half his payments for nearly 2 years. He waved it off. That was different. He was on the come-up. This deal would let him square everything with me. Dylan straightened, voice sharpening. Why couldn't I take on one more loan? My credit was already stretched thin from his misses. One more risk could sink me. He just needed a signature, not for a flip, not for anything wild. He stared, then laughed cold, said I was selfish, said I'd always been the dull one, too scared to swing. Said he'd make it with or without me, and he'd remember this when he was on top. He snatched his phone, headed for the door. Before leaving, he tossed back a line I'll never shake. The door slammed. I sat staring at my screen, hands shaking with something hotter than anger. I went back to my notes. Interview in under 24 hours. I needed to lock in. I needed this job. It was my exit ramp away from being the perpetual parachute. I thought about calling Mom, texting Dylan, even apologizing for nothing. I did neither, closed the file, kept prepping, told myself it would blow over. Dylan always pivoted to the next shiny thing. He always forgot. I was wrong. The interview was set for 9 a.m. I woke at 6:30, showered, threw on a crisp shirt. Only the top half mattered on camera, tested my connection 8 times. Rock solid. Desk clear, notes neat, resume sharp. Brewed coffee, logged in 10 minutes early. At 8:50, I heard tires crunch next door. My parents lived 2 doors down. Dylan still bunks there. I figured he was heading to work. Then came heavy, hurried boots on the exterior stairs, boots that didn't belong to a friendly drop-in. The hallway breaker box screeched open. I stood, puzzled. Then darkness. Monitor blinked out, fridge died, router went black, whole apartment dead. I bolted to the door, yanked it wide. Dylan stood there, fingers still on the panel, smirking like he'd pulled the prank of the century. I stared, brain scrambling. "What are you doing?" He shrugged, just fooling around. I checked my watch, 8:53. Interview in 7. "Turn it back on. Now." He tilted his head, mock considering, then shook no. Maybe I needed to feel what it's like when help doesn't come. I stepped closer, voice louder than planned. "I have an interview. Right now. Power on." He laughed. Actually laughed. Said he knew. Said he'd seen my calendar on the counter yesterday. Thought it was hilarious. Guess we'll see who the real winner is. At 8:59, the hiring manager waited in the lobby. I flipped breakers with shaking hands, lights flickered, router rebooted. I sprinted back, joined the call. Disaster. Pulse hammering, shirt soaked, connection stuttering. I flubbed answers I'd rehearsed 100 times. Apologized twice for tech issues. The manager stayed courteous, but his eyes had checked out. 20 minutes later, the call ended. I knew the job was gone. I sat in the quiet apartment, suddenly claustrophobic, staring at a dead screen, trying to absorb what had just happened. Dylan had sabotaged me deliberately. He'd stolen months of work, a life changer, because I wouldn't co-sign his latest fantasy. I didn't scream or cry. I sat, mind emptying, then filling with icy clarity. I didn't rush to my parents' house. I stayed in my apartment for hours, replaying the breaker flip, Dylan's smug face, the casual venom. He'd planned it. This wasn't a gag, this was payback. By evening, my phone started blowing up. Mom texted first, "You okay?" Then called. I let it ring. She called again. She asked me to come for dinner, said Dylan mentioned tension, wanted to smooth things. I said 20 minutes. Dylan was at the kitchen table scrolling when I walked in. Mom pulled out a chair, set a plate. Her smile was thin, anxious. "How was your day?" "I lost the job. Someone cut power to my building right before the interview." Mom looked at Dylan. He shrugged, "Just a prank," said I was overreacting. "Bad interviews happen, not his fault." I choked. I looked at Mom, waited. She set her fork down, said Dylan didn't mean harm, said he was upset about the loan. People do dumb things when they're mad. Brothers bicker, normal, don't hold grudges. I chewed food I couldn't taste while she spun excuses. Dad stayed silent, eyes on his plate. Dylan smirked at his screen. Mom kept talking, papering over the silence. I finished, thanked her, left. No one followed. I drove home, sat in my car in the dark, running the ledger in my head, all the cash, all the fixes, all the hours. Thought about Dylan's charger, the one I'd co-signed, the one I'd been funding, the spreadsheet I'd never shown. Then it hit me like a slap. I wasn't just a name on the loan. I was primary contact. I had access to everything. I went inside, fired up the laptop, stayed up until 3 a.m. digging through portals, agreements, digital trails I'd ignored for months. The car loan listed both names, but I was primary. Every notice, every warning, every statement hit my inbox. Dylan never saw how close repossession had loomed. I'd been quietly patching the holes, draining my savings to save his credit and mine. Payment history, 25 months. Dylan, 5 on time, me. Over $12,500 to keep his wheels turning while he posted road trip pics. 3 years ago, I'd helped him open a new checking account after his last bank shut him down for overdrafts. I sat beside him, walked him through linking payroll. He never changed the recovery email. Still mine. Balance low, but Friday's paycheck, $1,500, was queued. I screenshot the direct deposit routing and account numbers, saved to a folder labeled evidence. Loan docs had a clause I'd skimmed. 30-day grace, then auto default at 60 days delinquent, repossession without further notice. Last payment I made 3 weeks ago. If I stopped cold, 30 days overdue in 1 week, 60 in 5, repo in days. I opened my banking app, killed the $500 recurring transfer, half Dylan's note. Confirmation asked if I was sure. Yes, back to direct deposit. I could reroute his paycheck. Account still tied to my recovery email. Update routing, Friday's money lands elsewhere, Dylan clueless until he checks the balance. Weekend chaos, employer fix takes days. Meanwhile, the loan clock ticks. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, hands steady, mind sharp. I knew exactly what I was doing. Thursday night, I logged in via recovery email, swapped routing info. Paycheck would hit a new savings account I'd opened. Mine, legal, reversible. I had zero plans to reverse. Friday, I woke early, brewed coffee, confirmed deposit rerouted. Waited. Phone quiet until 9:30, Dylan. Noon, Mom, heard from Dylan. Bank glitch, any idea? I said no. Dylan rang at 2, left voicemail, rang at 4, 6. First confused, second furious, accusing me of hacking, third pleading for a wire to tide him over. Deleted all. Saturday, silent. Sunday, email from lender, loan default, repo in 72 hours, saved to evidence. Monday evening, I cruised past the folks' place, charger still in the drive. Went home, nuked leftovers, watched TV. Phone buzzed, Mom texts, Dylan calls, ignored. Tuesday, 7:58 a.m. Repo logged, vehicle secured. I smiled, rolled up at parents at 8:15. Dylan in the driveway staring at bare concrete. Mom beside him, phone to ear, frantic. Dad on the porch, arms folded, bewildered. I parked curbside, walked slow. Dylan spotted me, charged, roaring. What did you do? Where's my car? I stopped, voice level, repossessed. You did this. You quit paying. I quit paying your loan, the one you swore to handle. The one I've carried 2 years while you ignored it. Mom approached, phone clutched. Ethan, please, not now. Dylan needs help. Call the bank, fix it. I looked at her, really looked, and saw the same plea I'd seen 100 times, be the adult, swallow the damage, move on. I shook my head. No. Dylan lunged, fists balled. You ruined my life. That was my car. I need it for work. You ruined your life missing 5 payments. You lied. You used me. When I refused another loan, you tanked my interview. You cut my power on purpose because I wouldn't back your house flip. You cost me a 6-figure job. Mom gasped, Dylan, is that true? He ignored her, glared. It was a joke. Grow up. It wasn't a joke. It was malice. I'm done. I pulled the envelope from my jacket, handed it over. He tore it open, scanned, face draining. The note, every payment I'd made, date, amount. Total highlighted, $12,500. One line beneath, guess we'll see who the real success is. Dylan crushed the paper, screamed nonsense, flung it at me. It bounced off, hit the ground. You're unhinged. I'm done being your ATM, done being your cushion. You wanted the success contest. You lost. Mom tried to speak. I turned, walked to my car. Dad stepped off the porch, but I was already sliding in. Engine on, pulled away. Rear view, Dylan frozen, Mom crying, Dad lost. Phone blew up, texts, calls powered off. Inside, brewed coffee, opened laptop. Job apps, interviews, a life without bailouts. I smiled, picturing Dylan's car an impound, his empty account, the scramble, the reckoning. 3 weeks, no word from Dylan. Mom texted week 1, reconsider, he's struggling, bus is humiliating, you're cruel. Week 2, silence. Dad called once, asked if I was okay, told him yes. Asked if I'd help Dylan reclaim the car. No, long pause. He said he didn't like my methods, but he got it. Most honest talk we'd ever had. Hung up civil. Landed a new gig, not the 6-figure unicorn, but close. Senior IT at a downtown finance firm. Solid pay, great benefits, smooth interviews, no power outages. Transferred the $1,500 rerouted paycheck to a separate account, Dylan's debt. No plans to return it. A sliver of what he owed, but a start. Dylan retrieved the charger after begging cash from a girlfriend's parents, paid impound, barely caught the loan. Still driving it, same job, same bedroom at Mom and Dad's. Nothing changed except I was out of the equation. He had no parachute. That was the whole point. Started therapy, not from guilt, but to unpack why I'd waited so long to draw lines, why I'd spent years as the family fix-it without anyone asking if I was drowning. Sessions taught me to say no without flinching, to be reliable without being a rug. One evening on my balcony, beer in hand, sunset bleeding orange, phone buzzed, unknown number. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Dylan. No excuses, no spin. I stared a long time. Part of me wanted to fire back something sharp. I didn't. Deleted the text, set the phone down. Didn't need his regret. I'd already claimed mine. I'd taken back my calm, my limits, my future. I was no longer the chaos sponge. I was just Ethan, 34, small apartment, good job, building a life that was mine alone. Sun sank, sky flared purple. I finished my beer, went inside. Dinner to cook, emails to answer, a life to live, no rescues required. A life where I was the success, the real one, and that was enough. Thank you for watching my story. If you enjoyed it, Please subscribe and press the bell icon. Stay tuned for more real-life stories. Get more experiences.